Hello and welcome to Smaulgld's top foreign holders of U.S. Treasuries for the month of October 2017. Well, Saudi Arabia has been busy buying U.S. Treasuries. Saudi Arabian holdings of U.S. Treasuries soared in 2017. They were up 41% in 2017. In addition, Chinese Treasury holdings rose to 1.89 trillion in October, near a 12-month high. Russian U.S. Treasury holdings are up 41% year over year and at their highest level since September 2014. Chinese U.S. Treasury holdings are up nearly 140 billion since November 2016. Brazil, Switzerland, UK, Saudi Arabia, India, France also boost holdings significantly this year. If you remember, Saudi Arabia had threatened to dump its U.S. Treasuries over the 9/11 issue, but that didn't materialize. The U.S. did pass the 9/11 bill, and Obama vetoed it, but the Congress passed it anyway. And not only did Saudi Arabia not dump its treasuries since the passage of that bill, at the end of September 2016, they have significantly increased their treasury security holdings since then. So you've got higher U.S. interest rates, a new U.S. administration, and approving Chinese and Russian financing that's leading to a surge in U.S. Treasury buying. So do we have de-dollarization or perhaps re-dollarization? Let's take a look at some of the charts we've compiled here. So here are the foreigners loading up on U.S. Treasuries again. In the last 12 months, the U.S. Treasuries held by foreigners has grown for about $350 billion, you can see there. Now, for all of those talking about the yuan and its internationalization, keep in mind that the yuan is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is the 7th most held currency as a reserve, and it is far behind the dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound, and even behind the Canadian dollar and Australian dollar. Here is the US dollar in blue, and try to find this renminbi, the yuan. There it is, just showing up as a tiny, tiny blip. As of the end of the third quarter, 2017, US dollars constituted 6.3 trillion in foreign reserves, while the Chinese yuan constituted a scant $107 billion. And it's not like that's been growing in leaps and bounds. It was about 99 billion at the end of the second quarter, 90 some odd billion. So it's grown about 10 billion in 2017. Hardly anything to write home about, but yet the gold bugs continue to talk about how the yuan is basically becoming the preferred currency over the dollar. That is far from nonsense. That is far from ridiculous. It's just not even close to true. All right, let's see some other. Now, the other one is the dollar collapse. And now people are talking about 2017 being the biggest, the worst year for the dollar in years. But what they fail to realize is that over the past 10 years, the U.S. dollar, since 2014, the dollar has risen significantly. And look where the dollar is today. The dollar index is around 93. Still far higher than any other point during the past 10 years, and especially during the QE years during this period right here. So the dollar is slightly weaker. That was one of the administration's goals, to kind of level the playing field for trade. But the idea that the dollar is collapsing is just not true. It's gone down 12% this year, but it had risen significantly from 2014 and to 2015, and then rose again from 2016 all the way to its peak, its 10-year peak in 2017 at the beginning of the year. So it's given up some of the ground. Speaking of giving up ground, I notice over here on the corner, we're in the home stretch here. I'm recording this around 2:30 on Friday, the 29th. And we're trying to see if we can get gold to close the year above 1,300. Looks like it's headed that way, but it has to hold that support. And it looks also like, if you want to get some excitement here, this silver price has not held 17, and it will need a surge to get back up in the next couple of hours to close the year above 17. So what has that done for the gold-silver ratio? Not much. It looks like the gold-silver ratio is going to close above 75 to 1 again in 2017. Well, back to our treasuries. Now, that's your dollar collapse story. But who's buying these treasuries? Interesting enough, we mentioned Saudi Arabia. Here's a chart showing their holdings in November, just a year ago, at 100 billion. And despite their threats, they're now at 145 billion as of the most recent Treasury report. China and Russia, the two BRICS that are dumping treasuries, no, they're not. They're de-dollarization. Yes, they may be. Maybe they're trying to use other currencies in trade, but for their financial position and holding value, they are holding U.S. treasuries. China has increased its treasury holdings over the last 12 months, as we can see here, and they've regained their position as the #1 holder of U.S. treasuries over Japan. Now, Russia also reached a peak earlier this year, and they're still around that peak. They have increased their treasuries about 36% since last year. So Russia is increasing its foreign reserves just like China has been, and part of that increase is adding U.S. treasuries. So at the end of October, Russia held about 105 billion in treasuries, and while they have been adding gold, they added another 215 tons of gold this year, and they now have about 1,820 tons of gold. That gold is still worth less than their treasury position. That gold is worth about $75–80 billion, but their treasury position is $105 billion. Here's another chart of Saudi Arabia that goes back further. Their holdings of U.S. treasury, you can see, just before when they were making their threat that they were going to dump treasuries, they had about 85 billion. Well, today they now have 145 billion in U.S. treasuries. Thanks very much for listening. Coming up, we will have final U.S. Mint Gold Eagle, final U.S. Mint Silver Eagle, final U.S. Mint American Gold Buffalo, final U.S. Mint America the Beautiful silver coin reports. We'll also have the final Perth Mint results. We'll have for gold and silver. And we'll also have the final gold price in world currencies, not just the U.S. dollar for 2017. We'll have it in the pound, the euro, the yuan, and so on. And we'll also have the same for silver. So please subscribe to this channel and subscribe to Smaulgld. And also, if you'd like to buy gold or silver, please consider doing so through the links below this BitChute and YouTube and on the Smaulgld site. And also, please consider a year-end donation to Smaulgld via PayPal or via Bitcoin or Litecoin. Thank you very much.